Hello, myself Dr. Kaushik Halder, and today we'll be going through the session that is fundamental of design thinking. Now, what is design thinking? Tim Brown, who is CEO and president of IDEO, has said, design thinking is a human-centered approach to innovation that draws from designer's toolkit to integrate the need of people, the possibilities of the technology, and the requirement of business success. So, following the words, like if we see like this Venn diagram, why desirability of human needs, which is a requirement, viability of the business, feasibility of the technical thing, the intersection of these three. In other words, it is an innovation framework which has several steps and goes one step at a time, focusing on human need at its center. It has, as said, like it has several steps. Basically, it is clustered in three different buckets. One is understand, next is explore, and third is rolling out to production, or that is materialize. Now, the first, to understand, what is that need to be understand? That is the problem, that is a pain point of end user that needs to be understand. And that has two parts. One is empathize, and empathize means to understand the problem or to understand the requirement. And define is it is to restructure the problem statement if at all it is required. Next is the explore. It is like how to acknowledge the requirement that has to be taken into account by ideation and then prototyping of the same. Ideation is, we'll discuss like what are all these steps, what are all the tools that are involved in it. Then once the prototype is done, then we go for testing and implementation. So these all the steps are interconnected with each other. Like wherever like it is failed, like coming back to the first step, it is very much feasible. What is empathize? Empathize is the need of user which needs to be understood. So being in the shoes of user, it needs to understand like their pain area or the requirement. So how it can be understood? It can be understood through various activities like conducting interviews, observations, surveys. And what is the key output expected out of these activities? The deeper understanding of users' need and problem. Now, what are all the tools that can be part of this particular activity? We'll discuss in course of time. In the upcoming slide, we'll discuss. But this is what like the empathize, which is the first step of design thinking, wherein like we get in touch with the problem. Next is define. Next is define. In the define, we try to reframe the need which has been discussed with us. We try to get deeper into the need of the use case. The activities could be like the data collected during the empathize phase, identify the patterns, define the core problem. Now, just taking an example, there is a classic example, like it was been faced by GM, that is General Motors, Ford. They had once received a complaint statement saying that car doesn't start while purchase of vanilla ice cream. So the problem statement is car doesn't start when the owner of the car is purchasing vanilla ice cream. So Ford, after having few sessions of discussion with the owner, they sent the engineer and found Like the vanilla ice cream from the store where the owner is actually purchasing is nearby to the road or street, wherein like one can easily can purchase and can get back to car, and the car at that point of time, car needs, once it is stopped, it needs some time to cool down before the next start. So as because the vanilla store was nearby, after the purchase, when the winner was coming back, the time of getting served by the owner and the time to get cool by the engine was the engine was much lesser. So the thing is like it need more time to get cooled. So hence it was not getting started. At the same time, when the owner was looking for to purchase some other flavor ice cream, he had to park the car in a different place, or he has to move to different store which is a bit far away from the car. And after he's been served, after coming back to his car, the time which is taken for him to get served and the time to get cool, the engine coolness time was much more uh, than the time he took to get served. So the thing is, as the required time was been given to engine to get cool, so immediately once he is into car, he can start the car and can back to home. So the thing is like, it is ideally, it is not because of what the flavor of ice cream he is purchasing was the cause of engine not getting started. It is the need of the time that engine to cool down was not adequate. That's why like the engine was not getting started. That was the root cause. So the thing is like with this define is something which actually tries to get down into the problem statement, what actually is the need of the, or what actually is the cause of the issue. Okay. And it is not just, maybe not always, like what is been part of the empathize. Next is like ideate. So it is a it generates, it is a phase where people has the liberty to come up with uh, different vibrant wild thoughts. It may be the thoughts from any dimension, and to do that it needs to follow a kind of a culture. And this culture, what we have shown over here, is from the YouTube, which has been followed by IDEO while doing a case study. It is saying topics are there which been followed by IDEO. The same is being presented over here. It is stay focused on the topic. Whenever some discussion is going on, deviation from the topic is supposed not to happen. Even though the idea may be vibrant, may go different dimension, but it should be talking about on that topic. Deferred judgment. So what does it mean is like one should not provide the judgment based on one's ideation or one's creative thought. So patience has to be there to acquire more and more ideas. So everyone's supposed to be cooperative so as to feel like adding some ideas on top of the Pete's idea, so as to add some kind of more feather to the existing or to the shared idea by one of the colleague. There should not be, or in a other way around, conversation should happen one at a time. If someone is speaking, others supposed to have a keen ear towards it. It is sometimes like while explanation, it should not be in text. It is always preferred to be visual. The idea is supposed to be in a way like it can fail early and often. It really doesn't matter to fail early and often. It is always encouraged to come up with wild ideas. it is always encouraged to go for quantity. And the most important thing is all the ideas supposed to be goal-oriented and user-centered. Now, to conduct the brainstorming, the activities, it can be whatever we discussed just now are part of those culture, like encourage wild ideas, conduct brainstorming session. And the key outcome, it is expected to a diverse set of innovative ideas. The prototype. The next phase is to build a POC or a prototype out of whatever the ideation has been done. So the purpose of this particular phase is to build quick and low fidelity representation of the potential solution to visualize the test ideas. So whatever has been discussed in the brainstorm, that has to be bring together and put it all together to bring out in a kind of a shape. It may not have all the functionalities, that is fine, but design thinking prototype. This phase comes just after the ideation. The purpose is build quick and low fidelity representation of the potential solution to visualize test ideas. Activities that it involves: create physical or digital prototype that can help communicate the concept and functionalities. Outcome expected is tangible representation of ideas. Now, the prototype, it may again have different phases altogether on very much high level, like it is critical experience, critical function, then dark horse, funky prototype, functional prototype, X is finished prototype, final prototype. These are few of the stages of prototype again, but we will not go through this prototype stages over here. We'll take a separate session on this one. Let us take an example of this. Like, suppose we are going to build an AI model. AI model maybe based on some algorithms, a random forest or anything. But the thing is, like, it is always not advised to go with the whole of the data which is there in database. The millions of data are there. Now, the thing is, probably we may go with a week's data first, test it, and see like what kind of accuracy it is required. If the algorithm that is used, if it is acknowledging it, fine, then probably like we can go for 1 month data and can see like what kind of accuracy it is coming up with. If it goes all fine, then probably like at a point of time, like we can think of going for the million data which is there in the database to get trained. So the thing is, like, first what we did is a kind of a prototype working with 7 days of data. So that is something like it may not include all the functionalities, or it may not give us a right notion of the accuracy. Might be more the data, better the sense of accuracy we'll have it, but it will tell us to some extent like what would it behave in the course of time. So the prototype is always good. Next is the testing. So once a prototype is done, it needs to be evaluated with the need of the customer and what has been built. So the purpose is to gather the feedback from the user to evaluate the effectiveness of the prototype. So activities that might include is to conduct the usability test, user interviews, and gather quantitative and qualitative data on user interpretation. The key output expected is insights to the strength and weakness of the prototype, identifying the areas of improvement. Example like as discussed, taking the same example like AI. Now say the first model which was built using tree, and the accuracy, what it came up with, was not liked by end user. So the need of the user and the prototype that it came up with was having some delta gap. This gap is again been addressed by having some other models, say random forest, into picture, and found like the accuracy now what it is coming up with is matching the need of the end user. So that is something like it has been done, the testing on top of the prototype. Say the prototype was built on decision tree, and after being tested, it has been modified with the model that is random forest and found the accuracy. Now it is coming after having random forest in picture is matching the need of the end user. So that is what testing plays a role over here. Implement. Develop the best solution on the insight and feedback received during the testing phase. So this is where like the prototype, it engulfs various attributes or various functionalities which are either left out or been discussed by the end user during the testing phase and gathered all the attributes and implemented over in the prototype, and now in this phase it has been planned to roll out to production. It is activities. In the activities, it is refine the chosen prototype, create detailed plans for implementation. Output is a fully developed, ready to implement solution that addresses the need of the user. Now, if we talk about the techniques that what been used in all the phases, these are the techniques. Like in empathize, we use problem statement. In problem statement, it defines what is actually the problem is. Interview of empathy. It is a way the interview is supposed to be done, but in an empathetic way. It is 5W and H. Like it is to drill down into the requirement to know what actually is the issue or what are different types of issues are there. It is 5xy, asking why 5 times on a particular question, why it happened, why it occurred, why it again happened. So why 5 times. It is not always like we need to recur it for 5 times. If actually the answer is received or the acknowledgement is done, then or in other way around, like if the answer that what we are looking for is received even before the 5th why, we stop before 5th why as well. It is not necessarily like we have to go for 5 times why. Jobs to be done, like it is something like again a kind of an empathetic way of to know what actually is the issue. Design principles. This is again a kind of an requirement gathering tool. So the jobs to be done, it is one of the podcasts we have done beforehand, wherein like we have discussed the jobs to be done over there. Next 2 phases are part of the define. The observe. Observe means to observe keenly the issue or the problem, how it is actually occurring. Now, the thing is, we have different tools to define that, like customer journey, persona profile, empathetic mapping. Empathetic mapping and empathetic interview are different. Empathetic mapping is something gathering the sentiments in all dimensions of an user. Trend analysis is something like what usually it happens in an ethical way, in a normal, legitimate way, what is the trend, what it is expected to happen. Peer observation P. So peer observing P, it is something like it usually comes into picture like where interview are not expected to happen. Then we see like how that particular issue is occurring by just observing, and where it is occurring, like a particular job in an IT is, or a particular plant, or a particular manufacturing plant is actually breaking in a particular time of a particular day. So it can only be noted by observing that particular thing. So the same thing, if I take it in an IT way, a particular job is uh, it is failing in a particular time of a day, or say in a particular day of a week, that particular job is always failing. So it is can only be assessed by observing that particular issue, by observing that one. AEIOU is again something which is a part of defining in depth the issue. Now, once that is done, once the observations are done to define the issue, or the problem statement, the next would be like how to do the uh, or in other way around, how to share our understanding on the issue to the stakeholders. Let us speak it in this way. It can be also, you can say, as a kind of an reverse KT, knowledge transition, or let us share our point of view towards the problem statement, what end user has defined till now. Like we had discussed just beforehand, like Ford, the owner of the Ford faced an issue saying the fact like it's allergic towards vanilla ice cream. So the thing is, like, if being an engineer, say if I am an engineer in the Ford, and I happen to observe something different, like it is not the car which is allergic towards vanilla ice cream, it is a time which the engine needs to cool down. It's actually not adequate enough. It needs some more time to get cooled down at a time like when the owner is going for purchasing the vanilla flavor ice cream. That has to be defined. So there are various tools are there of defining that one. It can be part of a storytelling, critical item diagram. In the critical item diagram, like probably the critical part of the whole discussion or the whole problem statement, like it may be so, like the problem statement might be big, but in that a particular problem, like the way we just now discussed, like the engine was not getting proper time to cool down. So that is a critical item. So that has to be part of the discussion. Context mapping, sometimes it is very radical, and we have to map that thought process with something which is related to the environment. So that is contextual mapping. Vision cone, again, it is something like to in the vision cone, like we usually drag our discussion from history, present, and how it can be delivered in the future. So it is again a kind of an like I'm taking an example, performance appraisal. In usually performance appraisal, what happens, like what has been done, what one is doing, and what the organization is expecting from that particular resource in future. So that is a vision code. So we'll be discussing on this, each of the tool, in the upcoming phases, or in the upcoming webinars or workshops. Now let me go to the next phase, that is ideate. Let me go to the next phase, that is ideate. In ideate, there are various tools are there, like brainstorming, voting, dot voting, then how might we, HMW questions, or sometimes it is also said like why and how laddering, NABC, 2 into 2 matrices, special brainstorming. In the special brainstorming is something, it is negative brainstorming. Usually what we say in brainstorming is how can we make that particular things happen. In negative brainstorming, we say like how can we make that particular thing not happen. Now say we'll take all the measures or we'll brainstorm on all the possible things for that particular thing not to happen. So that is negative brainstorming. So now say we'll discuss in a way just to, because we just started discussing on this negative brainstorming. So let us say in a fact like we are not able to catch hold of root cause for a particular job which is failing in an IT production environment. Okay. Now the thing is like we are, as because we are not we are in a brainstorming session and failed to come up with a proper root cause and found like whatever the reasons we came up with in the brainstorming are actually not aligned to the failure reason of that particular job. So the next step what we done is like came up with negative brainstorming. In the negative brainstorming, we came up with all possible causes that can help in that particular job to break down on that particular day and that particular time. And that actually helped us in coming up with that reason. So all because we came up with all possible reasons that can make that particular job to break down. So the thing is like we had the reason in that particular discussion and could get down into that particular root cause. So that is how like usually negative brainstorming it happens. Now prototype, MVP. So it is the minimum viability that is been required to come up with and share with the stakeholders for their review, for their feedback. And we discussed just before some time back, like there are different phases of prototypes are there, like CP, CFP, dark houses, funky, vision, X is finish. So this we'll be discussing in later point of time sometime. And we'll be taking the discussion because that itself is a separate subject altogether. And test. In test, will be there are different tools are there. That is A/B testing, feedback capture, grid, testing sheet. In implementation, like again, different tools are there. Like I wish, I like, I wonder. It is the way like one captures the feedback actually. Innovation funnel, roadmap for implementation. So these are all the tools which are aligned to each of the phases, and we will be going through in the upcoming sessions or webinar or workshops. Taking, like it is not always like we will be discussing this one as part of the business. We'll be taking this as a part of even the personal requirement also. It is just to make one understand like how this can be part of our attitude, how this can be part of our self-practice kind of a thing. So if we can take it up in that way, then definitely like no wonder like we can bring this the same thing in our office work or anything that is required in our even personal life as well. Thanks a lot.